what is it to be a human being? Is it to be in this sort of state of slow motion captivity? I personally got rid of all my social media 2 years ago, and that was a massive, like, in terms of my mindset, everything was a night and day difference.
Social connection apps prey on loneliness for profit. What's your take on it?
People feeling like they have to go to social media because there's no other option for them. You put that energy into yourself, you're then able to sort of share that energy with other people. You put that energy into your wellness, you sort of charge up your batteries to the max, and then you can share the best value with other people as well. So living in a world where that's sort of a common thing.
What do you do when your social battery dies?
It's a great question. And I think there's a yin and yang to everything, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not always like 100% with people like 24/7.
Your background is in finance, but you've created a digital product.
I didn't know anything about the industry that I was getting into. It was almost like, this is my vision. How can I facilitate that? So it's just trial and error, trial and error.
Being in wealth management, it wasn't resonating to you ethically.
I just don't know about just the rich getting richer. Everyone else is struggling. People are sort of struggling with mental health and all these other problems in society.
What did you struggle with the most then?
I think in terms of so far, it's almost like just doing the sort of legwork, getting the platform up and running. In the beginning, no one's going to be looking at what you're doing.
At the end of the day, you are a business. How do you make money? Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 13 of the FMU Founders Mindset Unfiltered podcast. Networking and meeting new people is a staple of life. But unfortunately for some, social media has affected their social skills, and more people are starting to get trapped into this virtual reality. Luckily, we have people like Jamal who are starting to make a difference and release people back into reality. He started a real-world connection platform called Linkar, where people can go on and find events close to home, which they can attend and learn new skills. They can learn new skills, meet new peoples, and even share their stories. He aims to reshape how we connect in an increasingly digital world. If anyone is having any struggles socializing and wants to find solutions, I'd stay till the end of this episode. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Jamal Hasan onto the podcast. Jamal, it's lovely to have you join us today.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you. Again, it is a fantastic opportunity to talk about something that is really important. And I think a lot of people sort of have this in the back of their mind, or it's obviously a big part of everyone's life, the way that you interact and everything. So I think talking about it more and more is definitely a huge benefit.
And we'll get straight into it for the people listening at home. Listen, Jamal, what hole in your own life were you trying to fill with the concept of Linkar?
I mean, where do I start? I think there's so much in terms of your own personal life. Like, people talk about so much in terms of like the friendships that you make, the people that you meet, but you don't realize, unless you are isolated or you feel like you're trapped, or you're doing a job that you don't enjoy and you don't really have that friendship within that job. Even people that might be at college or school that don't really fit in. Or if you move to a new place, like for instance, you travel the world, you have to sort of move somewhere else, and then having that opportunity to feel like people are there for you. I think they all tie in. So for me personally, I've had moments where I'm doing a job just to pay the bills, working towards something, and I've been isolated. So I've been sort of working from home, and it's had a massive effect in terms of my mental well-being, like not even being able to go to sleep, thinking about all these different things in your mind. It's almost like you have like a million thoughts at once, like your mind's racing and you don't know what's going on. So I think from that point of view, it really highlighted to me how important it is to have the people around you. Because I've gone through phases where growing up, I've had a lot of family around me. So we've had quite a big family unit, and that's been something that is a massive part of my life. But then moving out, living on your own, you sort of see that there's a massive difference there. And when you've seen one side of it and then you see the other side of it, I think that that really highlights, for me personally, where you've almost gone to both ends of the spectrum, and then you've understood both ends of how that can make you feel and how to sort of get out of that. So again, that's what drew me towards trying to help others. Um, I think from that point of view as well, like thinking about it personally first, like I had a couple of friends that were doing a few different activities, like friends of friends. So for instance, like one of my friends is a musician, and then I'd go and speak to him about what stuff he's doing, like not necessarily what I'm focusing on. So that was something that took me out of my personal struggles, the mindset that I was in. One of my other friends who was like a professional diver, so like he was doing all this kind of diving, and then I went to the lessons with him, and that was a great socializing element, getting out of the home, and then slowly building up these little activities, and then going back out there, speaking to more people. Then I understood, okay, this is a massive thing. Like if I can come from one mindset to the other, is there an opportunity for other people to also who are also struggling to present an opportunity or a maybe like an opportunity or a pathway for them to also get out of the struggles that they're in. So that's what really led me to Linkar, and then it thought, okay, is there a demand for this? Where's the world going? Obviously, you've got AI and you've got a lot of different things. So I think from there, it really started the journey.
Do you know what's crazy to me is that no matter what stage of life that you're in, whether you're in secondary school, whether you're in uni, in college, you can always, there's always a time where you can feel mentally bad and you're struggling with it, getting yourself out there. And I want you to take me back to a time when you were going through that exact same thing and how did you get through it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the exact moment, let's have a think about it, is maybe like working from home, doing a job. Well, I think at the time, so I was training. So this was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So coming out of another sales job, so I was doing loads of different sales jobs. So I'd finished a sales job that was focusing on like selling cars. So it was like a bit of a passion of mine. So I was working over in Huddersfield, and we were selling high performance cars. Like amazing job. Like for me, that was like I was loving it. It was quite social, like speaking to different people, and cars as well as a big passion of mine. So for instance, that we were selling like your Mercedes, Audi, Ferrari, like all the big brands. And then I quit that job because I was like, as an entrepreneur, I want to work for myself. I want to do something that's like that's going to build my own future. I want to earn like triple the amount that I was earning there. I think it was about 3 or 4 grand a month at the time, like with the commission. So I wanted to be at the time a day trader. So I was like, oh, the trading's the one. Like it's so great. Like all these people are making a tremendous amount of money doing it. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go all in, basically doing all the research and whatnot. So then what happened was, then I got another job, like a work from home job at the time. And this job, it was just like super, like they basically, it's like chain to your seat. Like you weren't allowed off the phone for like 5 minutes or whatever. Like everything was monitored to a degree where you felt like, "Oh, this is crazy." And then I was trying to get the trading started at the same time, like doing all the practice, like all the demo trading and everything. And then there's the massive pressure of that. And then obviously there was this job. And then I wasn't socializing with anyone. So I was just at home, just being like, "Oh, I really need to smash it. Like, this is the one. I've quit this job that I'm really enjoying. And I've gone into this new one or this new challenge or in that sense. And I was almost doing the job to be like, this will just save me a bit of money and time until I can get the trading going. And obviously that was a massively difficult time. So I wasn't really socializing. Everything I was doing was just focusing on the sort of the journey. Um, and I think that even in itself highlights something that if you're not aligned fully with what you're doing, regardless of if there's a massive carrot dangling in front of you or you think there's going to be a big money reward, then it's not worth it if you're going to be isolated and you're feeling pressure and you can't sleep or you can't speak to people. So that was a big one. And then from that, luckily, I had a few people around me that I wasn't actually going to at the time, but they were still in a way there. So then I was sort of speaking to them and saying, oh, like, this, that, and the other. Like, I've been feeling a bit down, etc. Like, is something that we can do as an activity, or just even set up a little conversation. So we started doing like an accountability meeting every Sunday. So me and one of my good friends, and he's a musician, so he's basically in a different industry, completely different vibe. And then we were basically started having these conversations every Sunday, like, what are you going to do this week? What are your targets? Like, what's going to make you feel like, not even career wise, but health and wellness? Like, what's your diet like? What kind of exercises are you doing? How is that affecting like your career? So we were having these conversations like on a weekly basis. And that really helped me get out of that mindset because it almost put everything in a place where I could analyze and be like, okay, this is what I need to do to the next stage. And then week by week, I was tracking the progress of like, okay, I've gone from X, Y, and Z to this is where I am now. Um, and then I went through a bit of a phase there where I started meeting more and more people, like friends of friends. And then we were able then to come out of that sort of mindset and then get way more confident and feel a lot better in terms of the interactions that I was having.
Would you say tracking your personal growth is a good way to get out of this mental battle?
Oh, massively. I think tracking your personal growth or even just articulating your thoughts and putting them a pen to paper, like writing a journal, it might be overblown what people would say, but I think it's so important just to do it for yourself. It doesn't even need to be shared with someone else. But if you were to do that and then also pair it with having a conversation with someone else, I think that's super important because then you can bounce ideas. You can almost like give each other a bit of a direction, especially if you think something might be right and the other person doesn't agree with that. It almost challenges that thought process, but in a constructive way. So I think that that's a big part of it in terms of tracking it, and because then you know where you are as well. I think a big part of the mental health battle is just being lost. Like, you're in a spiral, you don't know what's going on, you feel like everything's overwhelming, like all these different thoughts or things going on. So I think that's a big one.
I think another thing that might lead to people not being able to really get out there is because they've realized that people can get their dopamine hit digitally. They can go on social media, scroll for hours, and they'll get their dopamine hit via that. Do you think digital apps are capitalizing on that?
Well, it's crazy that you say that because all these platforms spending billions of pounds to keep obviously users on there, they've used the same framework as the people that came before them, like the fast food industry. They spend billions in terms of how can we make this food as addictive as possible, and it's a similar sort of journey that they've gone through. So it is massively dangerous. It's almost like taking it back to the health thing, like smoking was seen as a good thing, like healthy, and then 100 years later, it's kind of like, wow, like we were giving all this praise to smoking. So I think it's so important to establish that these things are powerful, and not to say that social media hasn't got its benefit, but it never replaces that human interaction. I think another big one is the fact that people on social media will only maybe show the best side of what they're doing, or it gives kind of a skewed view of reality. And even on the financial side, you see people flexing online. Even if you're earning 5 grand a month, you think, wow, I'm so broke. And then it's like,
They show people what they want to see.
yeah,
That's what it is.
but in real life, I feel like the barriers come down and you'll start talking about the things that annoy you or the things that you're upset about or the things that you're struggling with. Because that face to face interaction, it's so much more intimate in a way whereby you can get those emotions across and there's no judgment and you feel like you're interacting, and it's a special kind of thing. And that's why, as humans, we can't lose track of that. I think that's one of the most important things over the last thousands of years that has kept us strong.
I think it's funny that you mentioned smoking before as well, because recently people are saying that smoking and vaping is the biggest addiction that people can have. But what they don't realize is that these social media apps such as Instagram, TikTok, even Facebook, you find yourself scrolling endlessly. And it's not even because you want to be, it's you do it without even realizing, because they're designed in a way where they're optimized to lock you into the platform, which then convinces people to stay in their screens and not experience outdoor life. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think from that point of view, when you get lost in the doom scrolling, it can affect any generation, but obviously the older generation have gone through a transition phase where they've seen what it's like to go out, interact, and sort of make friendships that way. But also in terms of the content that people are taking in, you've got to understand what it is in terms of how it's affecting you or the purpose of it, in terms of how the attention is manufactured in a way that it's going to affect your well-being and also your attention. So I think from that point of view, you need to stay clued on, and as long as you're aware of what you're doing, then that's, I think, the first half of the battle against being too addicted or too focused on social media. I personally got rid of all my social media 2 years ago, and that was a massive, like, in terms of my mindset, everything was a night and day difference. It's almost like, I don't know if you find it, but you'll be sitting around, and then when you're involved in the social media hemisphere, you'll be like, "Oh, what's my phone saying?" Or like, "Is there something going on my phone?" Even if there's nothing happening, it's like that automatic response is, like, drilled into your body.
I think it's like the fear of missing out in a way. I can't explain it, but yeah, I've been through it.
Yeah, and it's the same kind of thing that, like, if you like sweets or whatever, that little feeling of, "Oh, I need that dopamine hit." So, I guess from that point of view, being aware of it is the first step, and then from there, you can sort of work on how it fits in with your lifestyle maybe.
But then there is some cases where people are aware of it. They're aware of how heavy into social media they are, but because of their social life being a bit not dead, but a bit boring in a way, that's the only way that they can cope with it. And there are actually critics that say um, social connection apps prey on loneliness for profit. What's your take on it?
I think it's a two-part question. So the first part of that is people feeling like they have to go to social media because there's no other option for them. That's a massive problem. Like, just to say that in itself shows that, let's say, for instance, like maybe 50 years ago, 100 years ago, what would have people have done in that case? They'd have gone to their community, they'd have gone to their neighbors, they'd have interacted within their sort of environment, and that face-to-face interaction was always key. And even if it's not maybe for a friendship, but for some value exchange. So in terms of your location, you'd have people that provide a certain value, you'd go to them, and there'd be this kind of almost like a marketplace within that society. And we can come on to this as well, but I think money in a sense, I mean, it's quite an abstract thing, but that is just a means to an end in terms of value and what it means to be a human being and exchanging this sort of interaction that we have with one another. So from the first point, I think that's a massive problem. Like, people need to be coming back face to face, regardless of that. And I think the second part of the question, the fact that we've highlighted that loneliness is a problem, that is the key to anything in terms of getting back into the real world. So, I mean, in terms of looking at a platform type of thing, having a platform whereby you're presenting an opportunity to someone to then interact back in the real world, not necessarily for profit, but to give an opportunity to someone. So in terms of our model, it's a freemium model. Anyone can use it that feels lonely. Anyone can use it that wants to basically interact in the real world. There's no reason why you have to basically pay or be a contributor to the platform. However, in the economy, in the sort of ecosystem that we live in, me and you both know that without having some sort of revenue, then our vision and the projects and the way that we interact, it's almost impossible to basically bring that into reality. So that's, for me, really a means to provide the facilitation in order to help combat this massive problem. And obviously, however big you want to scale that, that's however big the problem is and how far flung loneliness and mental well-being and wellness and all these problems that are sort of around the world are. And then in terms of raising the revenue and capital will facilitate helping all those people. So that's the way I look at it.
There's also another point of, and you even mentioned it before, you were in that position of where you had so much work to do that you didn't really have time to socialize. Do you think nowadays people are too consumed with work to be able to socialize.
Yeah, it's a great point actually. Um, I don't know if you know about Japan, but people in Japan just work like 100 hours a week, and then it's such a big problem now where they're like falling asleep, like passing out in public, and it's become this whole thing. And for me, it's just crazy to think that that's the sort of construct that we've built our society on. Because what is it to be a human being? Is it to be in this sort of state of slow motion captivity whereby, let's say, 80% of people are doing a job just to get the money, and then that's just to facilitate living? I mean, as a human being, you should have that as an intrinsic value anyway. I mean, from that point of view, money is going to lead to the wellness. If you were to just cut the money out in the middle and go straight to the wellness, what kind of world does that bring us to? I think for me personally, the way I see it is obviously with the technological revolution that we're going into, will AI, in sort of the most positive way possible, take away the burden of monotonous or jobs that people don't want to do, and provide flexibility and freedom and opportunity whereby users can then interact with other people in society, and then just on a creative basis or on a basis of pure freedom, do what makes them feel great. That would be like a utopia situation, really.
No, that is true. Okay, then let's say then people have sorted out their issues with doing too much work and they've managed to free up themselves some time. I'd say myself, I'm quite a social person. I like meeting new people. I like sharing my stories. But I have found myself in instances where my social battery just runs out of nowhere. I'm sure you've gone through it too. So what do you do when your social battery dies?
It's a great question, and I think there's a yin and yang to everything, don't get me wrong, like, I'm not always, like, 100% with people, like, 24/7, but I mean, the value that I'm sort of generating from meeting people at the present time, and since obviously coming through the challenges that I've come through, that's only been a one-way street for me, in the sense of communicating with people and suggesting or working, sharing value to the point where it's a communal benefit. So we might bring, or I might bring something forward to you, and you might bring something forward to me, and we're both benefiting from that. We're both sort of increasing our um, position in terms of our dreams and getting closer to where we want to be ultimately. Um, but in terms of the social battery, I think wellness is a big one. So I think highlighting wellness, highlighting what that means. So it isn't necessarily just like massages or spas, but going back into nature, isolating yourself with certain therapies. Like, I mean, nature is probably the biggest one, but you've got like sound therapy, you've got all sorts of different exercises and things like that. Like, I love going for morning runs on my own when the sun's coming up. There's no feeling like it. So I think there's a lot of these different things that help recharge the social battery. The way I look at it as well is you put that energy into yourself, you're then able to sort of share that energy with other people. You put that energy into your wellness, you sort of charge up your batteries to the max, and then you can share the best value with other people as well. So living in a world where that's sort of a common thing. And I know nowadays, there's a big push with the wellness side of things. I know wellness industry, especially in sort of hospitality, is booming at the minute, like retreats and things like that. So you can definitely use that as your yin and yang dynamic, really.
That is an amazing way to put it, I would say. I would say so. But what's the best piece of advice that you would give to an introverted self that they want to get themselves out there, but they're just struggling quite a lot?
I mean, it's hard to say. I don't know if I'm an introvert or an extrovert, but I think if you have an intention, then that really helps. So you're going out there with a reason. Why are you sort of interacting with other people? What's the philosophy behind it? I guess even if you're socializing, quote unquote, randomly, I suppose there's always an intention there in terms of sort of what you're looking to achieve, what kind of friends you're looking for, or is there a new sort of opportunity that you might be looking for as well? So are you going in with the intention of I'm open to hearing what other people have to say, with an open mind in terms of learning something new that could be a direction that I want to take? So I'd probably say like having an intention is a great one. Then you know what you're going to get yourself into, and there's a bit of structure around the interaction as well. I think personally, if someone might be introverted, if they go into it with um, no real plan or idea or what they're trying to get out of an interaction, then it might lead to something that's not really that fruitful. But you've always got to just give it a go, I suppose.
So just go straight, jump, leap into the deep end. That's what they say. Leap into it. Let's switch up a little bit. Jamal, your background is in finance, but you've created a digital product. How was it leaping into that deep end and starting in a industry that isn't quite related, that you don't really know about?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really good question. I think from that point of view, to give you the reason and rationale behind the decision making process, I think is a big one as well. So I moved to London. Um, so soon as I was finished sixth form, so when I graduated from there, I moved to London because I wanted to see what the world had to offer, like meet loads of different types of people. I love exploring and seeing all the different culture and just learning and taking in the city vibe. And I think from that point, I was quite naive to the sense that I was just driven by getting more money, like what can I do to sort of earn the most money, etc. And then getting myself into sales. So I was doing like your high end property investment, selling like these apartments and helping sort of the developers sell the stock before it's built. So I did that for a number of years, and it was obviously paying the bills, and I was able just to have some freedom and things like that. And then it came to a point where we touched on it earlier on, but I did a few different sales jobs, and then I was like, okay, where's the next step from here? And then that got me into the trading side of things, but mentally that took a lot out of me. Um, after doing that for a little while, I did actually find some success with it. So maybe after, let's say, maybe like 6 months or so, doing the training, doing the practice, like anyone who's looking to get into trading, this is some of the the advice that I'd give you from my point of view. But the caveat is that I'm not doing it now because I couldn't find long-term success with it. So, for example, I did it for 3 months after the 6 month sort of getting into it period, and then I found success during those 3 months. Enough success to then put all the other like I didn't have a job, so that was my full-time thing. And then once I did that, I was like, "Okay, this is fantastic." But then it got to a time where it was like, "Okay, I need to switch it up and get into something more professional." So then doing chartered wealth management, working on that side of things, I just found that ethically I wasn't involved in it. I didn't find that it was resonating with me. Like, yes, the money was there. Yes, it was up from that point of view. Um, Paying the bills. But that's really what drew me to something that I can focus on as a passion, like a long-term project. And then when I went through these struggles, I sort of thought about it. And then I thought, look, this is something that I've gone through. How can I help other people? So I think from that point of view, it was really the transition was quite seamless, but I didn't know anything about the industry that I was getting into. It was almost like, this is my vision, how can I facilitate that? So it's just trial and error, trial and error. In terms of the tech stack, in terms of all the other elements, it's almost like, what's the next step? What's the process? Um, so I think from that point, it was just about getting the idea put in stone. What are you going to do? What's it going to be called? What's the brand? Like getting all the architecture, the framework in place. I think once that was done, then it was all about building up the basic sort of products. So initially, it was maybe quite naive to think, "Oh, you've got this great idea, let's just start pitching it from day one." But then we quickly came to a realization that we need to get more advice, we need to speak to the right people, we need to find out what's going on in the industry. And then fast forward a couple of months there, we got the direction that, okay, this is what we need to do in terms of build up a platform, get a beta, get a platform where people can see what it's all about. Basically, build up a bit of the social media, and just really raise awareness on the platform. So that's basically the stage that we've been working towards. But again, it's been trial and error. It's been finding the right contacts, speaking to the right people, and again, that relationship that I was talking about earlier on, where you're benefiting from sort of your platform, someone else has come onto the platform and they're benefiting their own business and everyone's winning. And I think that's honestly one of my biggest values now is you don't necessarily need the money, but it's the context, the people you have, the friendships you make, they can take your life to another level. So I'm really living through that process at the moment.
You one thing that stood out to me that you just said is that being in wealth management, it wasn't resonating to you ethically. Can I ask why? Because the way I see it, wealth management it does bring in a lot of money. So I'd be more focused to that side, and so would some people as well.
I mean, from that point of view, you're right. You can make a ton of money. And I was going to networking events, speaking to people. I was part of like the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments, so it's a big institution. And people there were talking about making sort of 400-500 grand a year and getting their own clients and building up their own companies and things like that. And it was super inspiring to be around. But at the same time, I just don't know about just the rich getting richer, everyone else is struggling, people are, sort of struggling with mental health and all these other problems in society, and if you're just oblivious to that and your career has been built on hoarding wealth, it just doesn't sit right with me. I can't explain it in any other way. And I think from that point of view, like, don't get me wrong, like, I love everyone. I think people that have earned their money is fantastic. But I think the problem is the underlying system, the sort of economy that we've built on, and it's nothing to hide. Like, people are struggling. The rich people that have obviously got wealth, their wealth is increasing massively, and there is a divide that's growing there. And whether or not you're wealthy or you're not wealthy, I think taking yourself out of that situation where you're working in that industry and focusing all the efforts on something where you feel like you've gone through an issue and it resonates with you more, and you feel like if I was to dedicate my life to this sort of project, then every day would be like the ultimate day. Like, I've reached success today, regardless of where I'm in the journey, whether we're at zero or we're at 1,000,000 shares on the stock exchange, your company's successful, it doesn't make a difference. Like, every day is a success if you're working on what you truly believe.
I mean, when you put it like that, yeah, it is true because I feel like everyone should get that equal opportunity to, become rich, see how it feels, and especially when you come from a household or just surroundings of no money, and you know what it feels like to be down. I think everyone should get that equal opportunity. So fair enough.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's great, obviously, to work hard and obviously prosper as much as you can personally. I think taking the money out of the equation, that's not even the biggest thing. I think it's all about wellness, satisfaction, human sort of well-being, psychologically, physically. That's the number one thing. That should be the currency that we live our life on. Not that, oh, you work 100 hours a week, you're on medication because you're working that hard. What is the end of that? Like, yes, you've earned 1,000,000 a year, but is that really the end goal? I think if you were to ask the majority of people, not to say that you're 1%, it was sort of people that run companies and things like that still have to put in the graft to that extent, and they are the outliers. But as a general population, if everyone said money is no option, live your life on complete freedom, wellness, and healthy well-being, I think people would be all over that.
I think so. Listen, Jamal, I want to know, how would I go about starting a product like yours? Who would I go to? How would I learn? I want to know everything.
So I think from the beginning, you've got to have a clear idea in terms of what the values of the product are. I think you've got to come up with, it's not even the biggest part, but obviously you've got to do your branding, the logo, the name. That resonates a lot of confidence in your project. Obviously that'll be with you the whole time. It's almost like another entity that you've brought forward. So that's going to represent you, your vision. To give you an idea, like Linkar, the name itself is 2 words, so it's link and radar. So our brand is built on linking as like human interaction, and our philosophy is a map, is like an interactive. You can basically, rather than just listings like an old school like Gumtree listing, it's almost like you can interact, scroll through a map. find out what's going in a certain location, get more points for entering a certain venue, and it's very sort of three-dimensional. So we wanted to bring that sort of technology and view on the sort of whole vibe of what we're trying to achieve. So Linkar, that's how the name came about. Um, Obviously, we had all the assets were available, so that's also probably a part of it. Um, and then from that point, you have to build up a bit of an audience. So, do people resonate with what your message is? Um, in terms of how people interact with your vision, bringing up maybe a small group of people that resonate with the vision, and that can grow more and more. I think also a big part of it is finding out from people who have already done it. So when I first started Linkar, I didn't have a clue about anything really. And then I went out and spoke to founders in Manchester that have built businesses. I've spoke to founders that have sold businesses like over in the States, like they've made millions from apps, platforms, and then now they're in a stage where they give some advice and say this is what you need to. I think one of the most pivotal conversations I had was I met a lady, really nice lady from the Manchester event centre. It's like where the old Manchester Central Station used to be, and she's the director of that. Um, Laurie, I think her name is, and she put me onto her husband, and her husband Rodney is a really nice guy, and he's sold businesses, things like that over across the pond. And he sat me down and I went through the vision. I was like, "Oh, this is Linkard. This is what we're gonna do." Like he invited me to his house, like completely random. Uh, but it was great. Like the hospitality was amazing. Like, he had a little dog and everything. And then I gave the vision. I was like, "Oh, this is what we want to do, and this is the project." And then he just shut me down on certain bits. He was like, "But if you did this, then this wouldn't work, and you really need to reconsider this, or how would you approach X, Y, and Z?" And then I went away thinking like, wow, like this is what it feels like to be redirected, but in the best way possible. This is growth. And that's what it felt like. This is growth. Like if I take on board advice and use it in a constructive way, that's the next stepping stone. So then I did that with more people. I went out and spoke to another guy, Jamil, and he's got a massive company. It's almost like I think he was going to sell it to Microsoft, and he's gone through all these big things where he's raised capital. He's gone through the journey. Now he's got like an office with like 30, 40 people and they're all working under him, and that's sort of the goal that you wanna get to a certain point to get your project to where it needs to be. And then he gave me all the advice. He just said, "I'm gonna put it to you bluntly. This is how it is, like, it's hard, like, you're gonna go through X, Y, and Z challenges." So I think that's one of the biggest things is go out there, speak to the people that have done it before, get advice from people, be open to learning and adapting. Like, you at the start, you don't know what you're doing. Your vision's there, the project, whatever, you've created it, but it has to be refined. And it's like the blacksmith or whatever, they'll put the sword into the thing and then they'll sharpen it. And iron sharpens iron. So you've got to keep going through that process. And I'm still going through that process now. So it's like an endless process. But then the more refined you get, that network builds and builds, and then you can leverage other people. They can tap into your what you've built to that point. You've got something behind you then, and then that I think can just keep going until you reach like a different continent, really.
100%. And for me, I think it's so important to have those people around you that aren't scared to tell you straight.
Yeah.
They aren't scared to tell you what you need to hear for the business to grow. But in some cases, when people hear that feedback, they get a bit offended, and it crushes their ego in a way. How did you make sure that that's not what happened to you?
Well, I think firstly you've got to just forget about the ego. Like if you're going to create something like a journey, a project, a business, then you almost have to transplant that business into your mind, and the ego, who you are at that point, I think has to dissolve to a certain extent. And every bit of information that you take on, if you see that as a negative or you see that as an attack on you, then you've already lost the game. Everything that you take in has to be, okay, what's the angle here that they're trying to improve on, or why have they said that, or what's behind the statement? It is the constructive element is there. So you've just got to look at it. It's like the way your perspective on things can be a massive massive advantage. So if you can start looking at things like that right from the beginning and see that people aren't trying to pull you down, but they're trying to improve you, that's a big one.
As an entrepreneur, especially, perspective is one of the biggest things that you can have, and one of the I'd say it's a blessing to have to look in different perspectives because that's the only way that you'll grow.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get too channeled in. That tunnel vision sometimes can be detrimental. It's great to have focus and determination and know where your end goal is, but the end goal is never a straight line. It's almost like you're going through the woods and there's battles and challenges, so you've got to be on point with that.
Jamal, why have you decided to use Manchester as your beta city?
So, I mean, what city is better than Manchester? Let's be honest. I mean, Manchester's great. I think Manchester's going through this huge process of innovation, and you can feel the buzz. I mean, I've been going to networking events for the last sort of 12 months, and the people that you meet, the innovation, the sort of support that you get from people here is fantastic. There's a lot of different ethnicities, a lot of different cultures, and you get to learn from loads of different types of people. So I think that's fantastic. I think it's also a place which is growing. So you get people coming in, entrepreneurs, different types of people that are also wanting to do new stuff, try new things. So it's definitely great from that point of view. It's almost like having like one borough of London. So you're not too spread thin in the beginning. You can focus on one location, get all sort of the little details, fine details sorted out, and then you know, okay, it works here. Let's scale it. So that's sort of the process that we're in now. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a great place. You can't go wrong with Manchester.
No, honestly, you're right because I recently attended a networking event in Manchester, and you're right. You can genuinely feel like I don't know how to explain it, but you can. There's a feel of entrepreneurship in the air. I don't know what a better way to put it, but it is a great place. But can this model that you're using now, can this model be copy and pasted to other cities?
Yeah, great question. So we went through a bit of a phase. So just to give the audience a full understanding of what sort of Linkar is from the beginning. So the idea of Linkar is a social shortcut in order to meet other people within your environment. So whether it's just to have a conversation, you want to play a board game, we want to keep it super broad in terms of if you just want to meet another human being to do an activity, to have a chat, or whatever it is you want to do, just to share thoughts with, you do it through Linkar. So how the platform works is you open the app, you then input your interests. So, for instance, Albert, you can put, I like chess, I like cars, I like going for walks. So, you put all that into the system, and then it creates this sort of neural web of who you are as a person, like an avatar. Once you've done that, you then have a look at sort of a map. So there's a map of Manchester integrated into the app. Think of it like an Uber map. So you can see all these interactive icons on the map. Now, these interactive icons, other people, they've posted a request in a certain area. We advise that requests in public places like a cafe, library, parks, or something like that. But it's completely open in terms of the system. You then see a certain request coming up as a notification because it shares an interest with you in terms of the account that you've already generated. Or you can basically search on the map, oh, this is interesting. Someone's doing a book club here, or someone's wanting to play a board game, checkers, in this venue, or someone wants to talk about Mercedes old school cars. Oh, that would be great. I love that kind of thing. So the idea is then you can just interactively go through this map, and then you're able then to connect with that person, and then you speak to them on the map, and then you're able then to meet them in real life. The idea is that it's on demand, it's in real time. As quick as you meet someone online, you can go and meet them in real life. As quick as you can get there, that's how quick the interaction can take place. Or you can do it, or we'll do it on the weekend, or let's set it up for Sunday, so you can plan in advance. And then this is all basically kept within the app's platform. Now, the big part in terms of the scaling, which you just mentioned, initially our idea was to have users also generate events, places, areas of interest. So, for instance, if you own your own cafe, then you would go on Linkar and create a listing for your own cafe. Now, what we found is we had at the minute, like you can look on the beta, there's probably about 100, different venues. So across like martial arts cafes, lounges, whatever a human interaction venue can be is on there. But what we were finding is people were finding it quite difficult to actually have the motivation to go on and actually create a listing. So then, say for instance, if you were to then move it to Nottingham or London or Amsterdam or wherever, then there would be a period of education and it would take time for people to realize, okay, this is the platform. I need to sign up in terms of the location, etc. So instead, what we're doing now is integrating a Google API, and basically everything is already on Google. So you've got your cafes, you've got the reviews, you've got basically a fully filled data sheet on that venue. But we will basically cut through the venues that we don't want. So there's like a list of like 500 different categories. But in terms of things that we don't want, like clothing shops, apparel, restaurant, things that we don't really find that would work with the existing Linkar methodology, we take them out. So now you've got a Google API that's just with the venues that we deem as a human interaction venue. Now the users can still post unique requests, but everything's already pre-generated. So that means in terms of scaling, we can start in New York tomorrow and everything's already there. We can go anywhere where Google API is, and we don't need to educate the locals. It doesn't take 2 years to get into market. We can then just get that up and running as long as people are aware of what the main functionality is of the meeting element, then that's cool. So that's the big point in terms of the scaling. Now, to get the users on board, we also found a massive learning element. So we started actually doing cash giveaways. So we'd have these little treasure chests that we'd put a banknote in, like a 50 or a 20, and then we'd hide them in Manchester, so in a real place somewhere, and then we'd post it on the map and we'd say, "Whoever goes on Linkar first, you find it on the map, you keep the cash." And then we found that the users on the platform spiked during those times because everyone was like, "Oh, we wanna find where this free money is." And then that got me thinking, okay, so if we can do that on this sort of very manual, rough basis, then surely we can create an incentive in the platform. So our whole thesis now is to basically pay our users to go on Linkar. So if you were to download the app and you, even if you don't meet someone directly, but you go to a venue that we deem as a human interaction hub, you then get paid credits into your account. And that's as a free user, you're getting something technically for nothing. So that's the new way now that we're going to drive users onto the platform and try and create a bit of a viral incentive for people. And then the idea gets a bit more um, technical. So if you and another Linkar user both come to the same area, you both get double points credited into your account. So then it's incorporating a sense of community, then come together. And then in terms of the venues, we say to them, if you want your venue, I don't think this has ever been a marketing avenue. You can tell me if this is the case. But we say to the venue, on Linkar, you can allow users on the platform to get triple the points if they come into your venue. So that will then attract more users that use the Linkar platform to come to that cafe instead of the other cafe that's just your standard points. So this is a new channel of marketing where they do a boost on their cafe. Let's say there's an ecosystem of Linkar users in the area. They say, "Oh my God, we're getting triple points. Let's go here instead." They then all come to the venue. The venue benefits from all the transactions that they get. So this is another way of monetizing in terms of bringing the Linkar points and that monetization that users are getting to the real world and getting people to then congregate, communicate, and come to these locations. So that's then scaling into this new hack that we can incorporate. And that's going to be a big step in terms of getting everyone on the platform and creating this viral stir.
But how do you actually make sure that people aren't abusing these link out points? Because say for example, I go on your website and I find out that there's a networking event from through Linkar and I go to that event. So let's say I've booked it in and it's all through Linkar and I'm there, but I stay there for 5 minutes. I still get the points, don't I?
Good question. So there's a whole framework built around the points. There's going to be a minimum time spent within sort of a certain location. So let's say 10 minutes is like that's a good amount of time that you spent there. I think the second point to that as well is the whole model. works on, obviously there's caps, that there's certain elements of the model that it can't sort of be abused. So people within the ecosystem, they're getting paid out, sort of free users getting paid out X amount, but that would be all derived relative to how much revenue the company's generating from ads and from all these other avenues of revenue. So it would work in an ecosystem whereby revenue is X, payouts are one third of X. And as that scales, it all scales accordingly. So you're never basically too far gone on one side of that, whereby all the other elements of the platform are fulfilling the amount of users that are getting paid out.
So does this actually attract the right clientele for you? Because from what I'm hearing, it's mainly money-driven people that would be attracted to this, right? It's not people that want to kind of socialize.
Yeah, it's a definitely a good point, and we're using the monetization element as the key, almost, driver to get people into the app. So this is the method, because everyone I know is sort of at a point now where money or an incentive like that is great. So let me put it to you this way: it doesn't necessarily need to be like money directly credited into your account. You will then earn Linkar points. Through those points, you'll then be able to spend those on vouchers and like a cafe or one of our partners in the area that can also benefit from that. It's a similar model to Sweatcoin if you've heard of that one. So you do steps. Each step you do, you earn a certain amount of sweat points, and then you can basically exchange that for partner gifts or rewards. So it'd use the same model. We know that that model works. But then the real kicker with this is once a certain X amount of users get on the platform, and then they start seeing the benefit of, wow, this is great to interact or find new people, then X amount of those users are going to be then shown the other side of it. And then they're really falling in love. It's almost like a technique to get people on there, and then they can see the benefit. So that's the biggest challenge with anything. I think if you're launching at a platform, is to get the user base on there. What kind of techniques or strategies can you use to do that? But if your product and your offering is unique and great, then once they see what you have to offer, then they're going to stay for the long term. And then the next level to that is then they subscribe, so they're a premium member, and with that you get extra benefits, etc. No ads. Um, so there's like a tiering system to that, and then you create an ecosystem within the ecosystem. So that's realistically the way that we want to approach it.
Right. It really seems like to me that you thought every single detail through. Because from what I'm hearing, it sounds exactly like so. And clearly it is working out because you've recently been nominated for an award.
That's right. So
Tell me about this award.
I think in terms of the award, it maybe a bit too early in our journey, but we basically got nominated for Startup of the Year, and it was a sort of a big event. But we actually didn't even manage to go down to the award ceremony, because just the funding limitations and having to put all the effort into the platform, which was a bit of a shame. But from that point of view, it just highlights how much time and effort goes into something like this, where you feel like at this stage the rewards aren't even justified. Personally, I think from that point of view, it's been, what's the word, like allocating the time wisely, and that's one of the biggest challenges as well. So from that point of view, it's great that we're getting the recognition, and we're still working towards much more in terms of how we can help people. But it's all the journey that we're on.
There we go. It's only the start of it. That's it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were born in 1997, right?
That's right.
And that makes you a Gen Z founder. So congratulations. Do you think your age gives you an advantage in understanding how younger people want to connect? Or does it ever make investors underestimate you?
I mean, it's a great question. I think I'm on in the middle of both these sort of generations. So I'm quite fortunate because my little brother is 12 years younger than me. So I see firsthand how that generation is evolving. And in terms of the social media, like how from a super young age they had like iPads and all these kind of technological advancement. But I also see like the struggles that they have. It's almost like market research directly, so I can just chat to him and his peers and say, "Oh, what's going on? X, Y, and Z. Like, how do you communicate? Whatever, like feeling what they're feeling." So I think that's a big one. But then being on the other side of it, I think investors will always underestimate you. There's always a reason that they will give. So you've just got to be strong in terms of your vision, what you're doing, the traction, and everything else from that point of view. But I've got a lot to learn. So I think it's a learning curve for me as well, like going through that process. So in the next 4 weeks, we're actually initiating conversations with investors to raise a pre-seed round. So we want to then get enough funding so I can work on the project full time and reinvest everything into the app and create. At the moment, it's a web-based beta, which is mobile native. So it's based on our Mark 1 methodology in terms of manual listings, etc. But the app will have all these different features that I've just mentioned, but scaling that to the point where the app is really smart, it's obviously efficient. And we actually were able, this is another little tangent, but through the Manchester Growth Hub, if anyone's struggling with funding, we put a proposal together with them, and they then actually got a grant from the government, and then that government grant is then filtered through to students at the Manchester University, and they are then able to start working on your project. So we've now started with a team over at Manchester University to create the account section of the Ultimate Linkar platform. So how do these avatars work in terms of an AI web? So these nodes connect with different nodes in terms of account processes. So if they create that and then hand it over to a dev team later on, they've done a great part of the work. So you can get into all these different grants and things like that as well. But that also shows investors that you've taken the steps, doing what you can with the limitations that you have. Um, but again, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to initiate those conversations, and then I'll probably get a lot of feedback in terms of where I can do better and etc. But it's all about learning from that, improving. What can we do next? I think with me, the ultimate journey is I know that this is a massive thing in terms of demand. People need it, and whatever the case, I know I don't have all the technical ability to do so. Um, but it's almost like learning and taking the next step, learning, taking the next step. I will always continue to do that until it becomes the end products of what it needs to be.
Now, you put a lot of these geo teasers, as well as these interview style content out on social media. I've seen them everywhere, and it's really good. How was it putting a face to the content?
I think it has its advantages, and I think once you get into doing the content, then you're flying, and you do get better at the content as well. I mean, you should see some of the earliest interviews; they were proper sketchy. Because I'm not an editor, so personally, like I don't have the skill set from that point of view. So it's just doing the best that I can. But I feel like over a certain period, we've learned quite a bit in terms of how to edit and things like that. But definitely on the horizon, like I made a few good contacts at the minute through networking, through socializing as well. Um, an editor, photographer. So I'm using the advice that these guys are giving and really helping take the content. We've got some new content that we've got in the pipeline that's gonna be super interactive, and now that we've got the best editor around, hopefully that's gonna create a bit of a stir. It's a concept that we've seen over in the US, and it's working really well over there, and no one's doing it in Manchester yet, but I'm not gonna give it away, so you'll have to stay tuned with the link our Instagram to see what that's all about.
They hit it from here first. Well, stay tuned for that, guys. But no, the reason why I was asking that was because a lot of people they're kind of scared to put their face out there in relation to their upcoming business just because of that fear of failure. Let's say if that business fails, then there's already a face to it. So how have you got over that fear?
I think you just have to accept that you're gonna do the best that you can, and whatever the outcome, like I said before, I live every day as if I've reached the ultimate point of success because I believe in what I'm doing. I feel like every step I take is almost like I put the maximum towards what I can do per day. And if you do that with whatever industry you're in or whatever project you're doing, then you should never have any fear because you've done the best thing that you can do. You've put in the maximum effort. Um, so you just got to go for it. It's almost like you can't put yourself out there because if you don't, then you've definitely failed.
Now, when it comes to content and Linkar, you guys post in a big quantity. I've seen quite a lot of those street style interviews and just advertisements as well. Has this content translated to people signing up for the actual app itself? Have you seen that translation?
Yeah, so from that point of view, I think being consistent has definitely translated. I think in the beginning, it takes maybe 2 or 3 months before you start even getting much traction. But in the recent sort of last 4 weeks, we've gained quite a bit more notoriety. We were actually at the Misfits events. We got a few more high profile people that were involved. Like they were happy to do interviews. We've got a few more coming in the next couple of weeks as well. But that was great because I think everyone resonates with kind of the message that we're getting across. Um, so yeah, from that point of view, the context that you bring on, the type, obviously, the better you get at the editing, the messaging, that's something that we're getting better at. The reason why we're doing it, and really connecting with the audience from that point of view. I think sometimes you can get too heavy on the product, and then the actual messaging gets lost, and then people don't connect with the product because they're like, "Oh, I don't understand what this is, or why are you doing it?" So that was a big one, and we're still working on improving that as well. Um, but yeah, from that point of view, we've actually been able to partner with a couple of big venues in Manchester. So you've got one of the venues is called the Cupra Cafe. So they're like a new counterculture cafe. They're part of a big corporate car brand, and they hosted us to actually do an event there. So we've been doing that on a regular basis. And we've got another venue which is like a wellness studio, Transmute. So shout out to Josh. Um, so this has all come from the social media. So obviously putting ourselves out there. We've also connected with a few other big players in town, like Tribe, the fitness sort of wellness type of gym. So we're in conversation with them for some new content and collaborations as well. So I think people see that you're putting yourself out there. How can I also get on that vibe with them?
Well, no, 100%. When customers click onto your website, when they click onto the map, there's a section that says places, events, and one-to-one links. For the listeners at home, I want you to define places, events, and one-to-one links.
Absolutely. So places, these are fixed venues where you can go and meet other people. So you've got a higher percentage chance of going there, finding a new friend, or just having a conversation with someone. So these are quite broad. So they cover like the wellness and also anything basically that's focused on productivity. Um, so from that point of view, you've got like cafes, libraries, like gym studios, creative side of things like museums, art galleries, things like that. So that's your places. Your events, these are concurrent or one-off gatherings that people want to set up. So whether it's through a company or you've got like a board game night or you do like the Laffy like a comedy club and everything's for free. So at the minute there's no paid like element of the platform from that point of view. So the access there, if anyone wants to find something to do or somewhere to go that's free, Linkart is literally mapped it all out in Manchester for you already. Um, we should do something like the Linkart challenge. Like if you're feeling isolated, go on Linkar, tick off every single location and event, and by the end of it, you'll be a new person. And then the final one, the one-to-one, this is the unique element. So you can basically go on there, Albert, post a request being like, I'm at Foundation Coffee House at 7:30. I want to have a conversation about one of the projects I'm working on. Is anyone in Manchester up for meeting? Almost like having a Reddit style post, but it's in a live location. And then people can see that and interact with it. So that's the ultimate goal with that. But in terms of getting people on there, showing them, discovering that this is an opportunity. That's what the beta is all about, just to sort of highlight a new avenue for people to take note of.
Jamal, let's talk about the very first time an external user used your app. How did that make you feel?
Well, I think it was both at the same time, like being nervous, like, oh my God, like they're on the platform. We need to make sure it's all on point. And at the same time, like being super fulfilled and being like, wow, like this is actually helping people. And also with the amount of people that we've brought together with the events and stuff, just seeing the live end products of what Linkar is all about, seeing people communicate, coming out of it as new contacts being made. That is literally the end goal. So it is proper fulfilling, and I think it's great. And for me, that's why even before the revenue or thinking about the money, my whole mindset shifted to value first. If I can produce an excellent amount of value, then everything else is basically going to fall in place with that. So it's been really good.
And I really love the fact that you focus more on morals and values instead of the money side, and you focus on connecting people together. But at the end of the day, you are a business. How do you make money?
Yeah. So at this point in time, it's purely value based. So we're just trying to deliver traction. We're trying to show that Linkar, it needs to happen. It's a big project in terms of its social values in the future. So moving forward from that, that's where we took all the learnings from the beta, from the MVP, and then we basically looked at that and said, wow, okay, this is what's driving users. This is the revenue element of it. How do we make that attractive? So we modeled everything out in terms of the platform. So how it will work moving forward is you bring people on board, you give them rewards for coming onto Linkar, and what happens there is you create a bit of a runway. So you basically pay out the rewards from your own pocket to the point where you get a number of users on the platform that then the ad revenue converts. So then at a certain point, let's say you get 10,000 users, 50,000 users, from that point of view, the ad revenue will pay X amount. It's almost like a simple 1 plus 1 is 2 equation. And then once your ad revenue is then paying out double or triple the amount that you're paying out to your users, that's now a sticky revenue generating model, exactly the same as Sweatcoin. So you've got that as the first point. Second point is the subscription freemium model. So you've got the standard platform, everyone can use it. People who subscribe, maybe five a month, something quite affordable, they are then able to obviously eliminate the ads, and they're able to basically get all these additional benefits. So going into maybe a bit more deeper in terms of the analytics, or finding more people, or creating a bit more of like a backlog of the types of activities you've done, so all that kind of information would be for subscribers, but keeping the core features accessible to everyone. So then you've got that as a second point of revenue. Um, and then on the third side, we've also got this idea of the referrals. So for instance, if you refer someone onto the platform, you get a certain payout, and then someone who subscribes, obviously they're now a revenue generating subscriber. The referral that you pay out is less than the subscriber, so then there's a margin within that that you can then, as a business, use to fulfill the revenue side. So there's a couple of features there that we'd look to use in terms of the monetization.
I don't know if you mentioned already, but the fiver that you pay to eliminate any ads, are there any beneficial any other beneficial um aspects to that fiver?
Of course. So then with that subscription, the idea would be that you get more rewards unlocked. So for instance, those Linkar points that you generate for going to venues, those would be indefinitely doubled. For our like newest users, when we launch the app, we're going to do a select number of, let's say, the first 1,000 users will lifetime get the double points on there. So we're going to incentivize that massively. Also, in terms of the analytics, the tracking, having different views of the map, um, different functionalities in terms of customizability. I think that's a big one. What we want to make this platform is not like your standard listings where you're just scrolling through listings like like a rolling reel. We want it to be super interactive. I don't think the mobile phone does it justice in terms of the vision that we have. Like, almost like Iron Man has this like interactive globe that comes out, and then you can like pinch it and go through everything. In the future, when the technology gets there, and I'm not tied to any one technology to say that we're making an app. We just want the best tech that facilitates the whole idea of Linkar. So whatever that may be in the market, we will use that to get there. So that would really be the idea with it. But again, going back to the subscriptions, um, that would be an idea. So providing value, getting recognition, getting extra rewards, and benefiting from the platform more than a regular user.
Right. Now, how do you verify and enforce safety for your users? Because let me set a scene here. What's to stop me from creating a fake event? It'll still be on Linkar, it'll be connected to Linkar, even though it might not be entirely. your fault. But what's to stop me from creating a fake event to lure some people in for, let's say, some bad intentions for a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. I think a lot of the platforms have struggled with this. So, like for instance, on Gumtree, there's might be scams out there, or on Facebook Marketplace, like people selling cars that don't even exist. Like you've heard of all the horror stories. So, I think as a platform, what we need to really do is create an environment that for vulnerable people is going to be the place to go. So even if that means in the beginning that user uptake is slower, but in 10 years when AI takes over, that this platform is the platform that we've built trust with our users. It's the long-term play. It's not about a quick buck, maximize ad revenue, and people are finding that there's these dangers on it. That's not the vibe at all. So what we're going to do is when we set up the platform, there'll be basically a facial recognition. You might have done like an ID and a facial recognition when you're setting up on some sort of app or maybe for your passport. So you know kind of the thing that we're on about. That would be the vibe. So when you sign up, everyone knows that it's a real human being. It's someone with credentials. So if anything was to happen, obviously you're in a public environment, like you're interacting with people. The way that you just go to the shopping center, you're going to use your same wits about you, the same way people use Tinder and all these other things. But if anything does go wrong, we've got ability to track that. We can then inform the authorities, and we give our users the maximum in terms of like education, how to interact, what to do. If this happens, then this is the next steps that you should take. So there's a lot of education from that point of view. Um, and again, you've got to be mindful of that, definitely.
What did you struggle with the most then when you were starting this platform, and what should people be aware of going into this industry?
I think in terms of so far, it's almost like just doing the sort of legwork, getting the platform up and running. In the beginning, no one's going to be looking at what you're doing, so it's all like an isolated project to a certain extent. So you need to be aware of that. Obviously, with Linkar, it's been great because we've been able to communicate and network. Such is the nature of the business, so you're bringing people together. But I think that that's a big one in the beginning. Now we're nowhere at the stage yet where we feel like it's a success because we've only just launched the beta. We've started to get a bit of traction on there and learn from the users what's going to make it successful. But that's what we're going to show to the investors at the next stage. Once we're able to secure the investment and build it into the platform and actually launch the full app with all the bells and whistles and get it into the market and start seeing thousands of users benefit from that, that'll be a real milestone. So we're still on track in terms of the progress to do that. But once we get to that point where we know that this is a great platform that's user on there, reoccurring users, they're finding value on it, then it's going to be all about scaling it. So what we've done in Manchester, we know that works. Let's get a representative in Bristol, in London, in Edinburgh, in Europe, in Barcelona, in Amsterdam, in Berlin, and then they would do the same thing, replicate. As long as the platform's already up and running at that point, it's almost like plug and play. You just go into these locations, getting people on it. So that would be the next step, and then going over to the States and requiring funding along the way, depending on how much revenue we get to scale it. Those are conversations that we can have, but that is really the big challenge now, is articulating everything that we've done so far, showing that the traction is there, showing that this is a massive opportunity, and then getting that investment to then take it to the next level. So if there's any investors out there, or you want to be co-founder of a project like this and you've got a bit of backing, then come have a conversation with me because obviously this is going places.
100%. This is a place to do it. Before Linkar came along, you had a crypto investment company.
Yeah.
What happened to that?
So that was a massive learning curve. So when I was moving back from London, basically Bitcoin was on the rise. Me and one of my business partners at the time, set up a fund. So we were quite naive at the time because we didn't really educate ourselves in terms of all the different processes. You can probably see now I'm a lot more thorough in terms of dotting all the X's and everything else, like making sure everything's on point. So we basically launched the fund, Crypto Edge, and we were just basically piling money in from friends and family, and we just invest into Bitcoin, and then as the price goes up every month, we take out like the profit and then pay it back to our basically our users. And it was like a discretionary, like we'd look after the money from that point of view. And then what happened was it was around when I think Bitcoin was like 3,000. So this was like Bitcoin's going down. I was losing my head. I was like, "Oh my god, like this what's happening? Like crypto's finished." Like all this like completely outside of the thesis of what we were like even set up in the beginning. So we lost a bit of money there and then we were just like, "Okay, this is it. We just have to like sort of take our losses and move on." Like there's no revenue. We can't facilitate the continuation of the project basically. So things ended there. And then lo and behold, the next 6 months, Bitcoin's on like the highest it's ever been. So it was just one of those things where we couldn't really market the fund to the broader public because we have to be FCA regulated, but we didn't know that when we started. We were just like, oh, we're just going to go for it and then whatever, like we'll learn. But then the FCA regulation, that takes funding or 6 to 12 months of accreditation that you have to do. Um, so there was obviously a massive learning curve from that point of view. And maybe it was just meant to be that at that time it didn't work out, and that led me one thing to another. Isolation led me to this. So I see everything as a benefit. So
It was all meant to happen. That's what it was. But do you reckon if it was down to bad timing, do you reckon it would have blew up if you carried on?
absolutely, I think timing is everything. If we started 6 months after at the sort of the 3K going into the next bull run, every single month would have been pure profit. We probably would have made enough money to get an FCA regulation with the revenue that we were generating and paying all the overheads. And then, obviously, you don't know, we could have got loads more funding come in, millions even, and that could have been the big thing. So it is what it is from that point of view. I don't look at things like that and see them as negatives. Like it was a learning experience. And I'm actually glad that I'm in the position that I'm in now because the money could have been a disadvantage as well. It could have taken me down a route that at the end of the day wasn't beneficial from that point of view.
Listen, Jamal, I want to know which city are you planning to take over next? You've done Manchester, that's the beta city. Which one's next on the radar?
Yeah, so as soon as the app is fully fledged and ready, then we're gonna roll it out in the north. So we'll do Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool. So they're like the big cities here. The great thing with it now is with our new methodology, we're not tied into any one place. So let's say, for instance, loads of people go and see the platform in Leeds, but they live in Bradford or they live elsewhere. That word of mouth starts spreading because in the beginning you can get points just for entering venues like cafes and etc. So then that basically builds up the user base to a certain extent, whereby when you then start posting requests, there's that ecosystem already there. So that was one of the biggest hurdles that we had in the beginning. All these other companies like Airbnb, Uber, like you can have a taxi business, but if you've got no clients, then no one's going to show up to your app. So you need to create a bit of an ecosystem. So this hack that we've basically got now is the driver to get people on the platform for one reason. But then once we translate them users into the real reason, then it's almost like a win-win, this two-sided equation. So the north is the first agenda. As soon as we do that, then it's the south, London, all the other places around there. And I think the next logical place, I think there's a lot of problems there. I think there's a lot of value and opportunity there. It is the state. That would be the next big target and get a bit more backing, make the right contacts, do it on the east side, New York, Miami, these kind of places. And then once we do that, we can go wherever really, I think.
I think one of the places that you should think about is Blackpool. I don't know if you've heard about that place. I don't know if you're familiar with Blackpool, but we could definitely use a platform like yours to socialize, to connect.
Definitely. I think tying that into the north, I mean, all the cities and towns should be on Linkar if they want to connect, if they want to find value. And that's where the beauty of using the existing places that are already on the Google Maps works so well. So we know that that's already an option that we can go for. And we can scale it really fast doing this as long as we can get the capital in the right place and have the right underpinnings in terms of the hardware, excuse me, the platform. then there's no way that the marketing can't stop. It's almost like it's a win-win then.
It is a win-win. So I want to switch up again. Let's do an activity, a quick one. Imagine I'm a venue. Imagine I'm uh, somewhere that you'd like to do host one of these events at. In 1 minute, convince me that I should rent out my space to Linkar.
Okay. So with your venue, how many people are you getting in there on a regular basis that want to facilitate friendships, that are struggling? Is that something that you're keen on at the minute?
It is on a daily. I'd say because we're a cafe. Let's imagine we're a cafe. We get around 20, 25. We can fit 100.
Okay. And at the minute, do you know how many the people that come into your cafe are struggling with mental health or are looking to make friends? Are you aware of sort of that kind of thing?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
So I think positioning Linkar as an organizer at your venue, you know exactly the outset what the intention is bringing people in that are struggling with mental health, people that are isolated, people that are trying to find new friends. So that's going to set your venue apart in terms of your social value proposition. Not only that, but you're also going to benefit from the amount of engagement, the social exposure that you're going to get by facilitating this kind of event. I mean, how do you feel about helping people?
Oh, I'd never say no to it.
Well, let's book it in then. Let's go for it.
You've got me. You've got me. What was that? What was that? 30 seconds. No, that's okay. That is amazing. That is amazing because it does. It creates that community, and it gives the companies a good reputation as well. And just knowing that you can help them out, you're that reason that they can come to and just sit down and have a little talk.
I mean, that's the idea. The proposition with Linkar, it's even something that I've considered where we crowdfund the whole project, make it fully decentralized, get 1 million people that own put a share of Linkar, and we all vote on the next steps of what Linkar does. Because it's not about me. I don't want to be the center of the attention. It's about everyone in the community, every place, every venue, every voice, every person that comes together. They all create the human experience. So Linkar is just all about collecting all these different amazing people and places and just putting them in one place and incentivizing people that they have the opportunity to go there. So it's a shout out to everyone. It's a shout out to you, to me, to everyone coming together. So that's what the whole vision and the ethos is behind it. And that's where whenever we speak to people and present it, it's always a vision that people align with. And that's where, for me personally, the biggest challenge is just to get more people to listen and appreciate the vision that what we're trying to approach. Is just bringing people together.
Listen, Jamal, um, I want you to summarize Linkar in a paragraph, and I want you to tell me about Linkar, where people can download the app, where people can access the app, just everything.
Absolutely. So I think to summarize Linkar in one platform is rewarding people in the real world. So rewarding not only from the monetary aspect, but from the wellness, the mental, all the physical aspects. So you want to get back in the real world and you want to be rewarded for it. And that's what Linkar is going to do for you. So in terms of where we are on our journey, we'd love for other people to approach us to collaborate. If you think that you need help with something that we can provide that guidance with, we'd be more than happy to communicate that. And again, if you want to support us on our journey and you think you've got an idea or an avenue that would help Linkar progress, then we'd love to hear that. We're actually hosting an event. I don't know if this podcast has actually come out by then, but it's on the 12th of September on Friday. We're going to be doing it on a monthly basis, but we're actually basically working with a few different venues around Manchester. So the concept is it's like a speed dating, but for making friends. So you turn up, we've got live DJ, it's quite a nice environment, and then you've got 10 minutes to speak to the person opposite you, share a bit of thoughts, feelings. You don't necessarily have to make friends, but it's just about venting and having a chat. And then you swap round, and then in an hour you're supposed to 5 people, whatever it may be, and then we have like an open discussion afterwards, like a networking bit of a music, bit of refreshments. So we want to do this as a regular thing in Manchester. So we've been doing that, gaining a bit of awareness. So that's a big part of what we're doing as well. So obviously any other venues out there that want to host us, we'd be more than happy to do that kind of event at your place. And then the big one is the next round is raise the capital to really push Linkar, create the app, the platform, get it to the vision of where we need to be. And a big shout out to Mikey. He's been helping with the technical side. And again, we've got a few other people that are giving us help, advice. So it's fantastic from that point of view. And we'd love to collaborate with as many people as possible. So if you're out there and you want to help, whether it's financially or giving us guidance, support, we'd love to collaborate and see how we can bring value to you as well.
Listen, guys, you heard it from Jamal himself here. If you're in that position of you just want to meet some new people, you want to try something new, this is a place to do it. And if you are a venue, I think it was a venue that's looking to host one of these events, please get into contact with Jamal. Jamal, could you let them know where they can get into contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on all the socials at Linkar Official. We've got our own website, so it's linkar.co.uk, pretty straightforward. If you're interested in the app, there's a wait list, so you can just submit your details on there, and then we'll keep you up to date as soon as the app launched, and you could be one of the first people to get the lifetime points. So that's going to be a big one. We also want to do a few other cool things. So we want to get the world record for the longest chain of humans linking arms together. So currently, it's like 4,222 in Malaysia, but we were thinking if we did this in Manchester, bringing all the community together, amazing PR, we'd go for 5,000 people, which is like 3 rounds of the Arndale. So that would be an amazing thing to bring the community together. So that's on the agenda. We've got obviously the events that we're doing, and we also want to communicate more with local social heroes, people that have been struggling with mental health. We want to hear your story. So yeah, just contact us. We'd love to communicate, and yeah, we really look forward to bringing Linkar to the public.
Guys, we'll make sure that Jamal's details and Linkar's details are in the description below. The app is available on both Play Store and App Store, right?
So the app is actually a web-based app, so it's just on the website, but you can go on it on the mobile. In terms of the app for the Apple Play Store and the Google Store, that's going to be coming very shortly. So go on the wait list. As soon as that's ready to download, you can go on that. But the beta is great. You can get a gist of what the Linker has to offer and a bit of about us and things like that on there as well.
There we go, Jamal. I want to say thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. It's been great hearing about your stories, your visions as well, and I really hope Linkar does succeed in its tracks.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And let's change the world. Let's link together.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. For the listeners listening at home as well, don't forget we are on YouTube, we're on Apple Podcasts, and we're also on Spotify. So if you want to tune in, we drop an episode every Wednesday at 5 a.m. That's your morning commute to work sorted. There's nothing better. But no, thank you very much for listening to today's episode. Jamal, it's been a pleasure
Thank you.
and stay tuned
Take
for the
care.
next
Cheers,
episode.
guys.
Thank you very much, guys.